Linda was only 21. A Nigerian beauty whose very presence could stop conversations mid-sentence. Her skin, smooth and fair, like the evening moonlight reflecting off calm water. Her eyes, sharp and alluring, holding a promise most men couldn't resist. And her hair, neatly styled in soft, shoulder-length Ghana weaving braids, with gold beads that shimmered when she moved. She worked as a receptionist in one of Abuja's biggest hotels. A place where foreign businessmen, wealthy politicians, and powerful chiefs came to rest, dine, and entertain. Everyone envied her perfect job, her fine clothes, her iPhone, her designer handbags. It was said that Linda was lucky. But no one knew. Luck had nothing to do with her wealth. At night, when most receptionists signed out and went home, Linda stayed behind, not to work overtime, but to wait for something more valuable than gold. She waited for rooms to empty, for sheets to be rumpled, and for dustbins to hold things most people would never touch. If only they knew what she was truly searching for. If only they knew the secret that fed her wealth. The hotel's corridors were quiet. Only the hum of the air conditioner and the distant clink of glasses from the bar echoed faintly. Linda's heels clicked softly on the marble floor as she approached room 407. The guest, a foreign oil magnate, had just left for the night. She opened the door, and there it was. The crumpled bedsheet, the faint, unmistakable scent of lost still in the air. Her eyes scanned the room quickly. And then she saw it. Half hidden inside the small dustbin beside the bed. A used condom, knotted at the tip. She slipped on a pair of latex gloves she always carried in her handbag. Picked it up, and dropped it carefully into a small black zip bag inside her purse. Her hands didn't shake. Her eyes didn't flinch. She had done this too many times before. This wasn't about lust. It wasn't about shame. It was about power. For Linda, every used condom was worth more than a bar of gold. Wealthy men with dark hearts, would pay huge amounts for them. They claimed they needed the essence of powerful or influential men for rituals. And Linda was the perfect supplier. It began 2 years ago. Linda was still new at the hotel back then, quiet, polite, and focused on her work. Until she met Mr. Williams, a wealthy businessman whose tailored suits looked like they belonged in a fashion magazine. One evening, after a brief exchange at the reception desk, he leaned in and spoke in a low voice. "Linda, if I offer you 200,000 naira tonight, can you get me the used condom of the man staying in room 509? She froze for a moment. The request felt strange, even disturbing. Her heart raced, part fear, part curiosity. But the money? It was more than 3 months of her salary, offered for something that would take less than 5 minutes to get. That night, temptation won. She waited until the guest in room 509 had left, slipped into the room, and found what she was looking for inside the small waste bin by the bed. She tied it in a tissue, sealed it inside a plain envelope, and handed it to Mr. Williams in the hotel parking lot. His lips curled into a slow smile as he pressed the thick bundle of cash into her palm. "Good girl," he whispered, "you've just stepped into a world where people like you never go hungry." From that moment, Linda's life took a turn she could never undo. From that night onward, Linda's eyes began to see the hotel differently. Every guest was no longer just a guest. They were a potential opportunity. It wasn't long before Mr. Williams introduced her to other clients, wealthy men who whispered through phone calls late at night. Men who claimed they needed the essence of powerful or influential men for business success. But Linda knew this was something far darker. At first, the guilt burned her chest each time she took one. She would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, asking herself if the money was worth her soul. But the more she collected, the more the fear faded. And the greed grew. Her apartment changed. She moved from a cramped room in the outskirts to a luxurious flat in the heart of Abuja. Her clothes were now imported. She walked into high-end restaurants and didn't bother looking at prices. No one suspected her. To her co-workers, she was simply a smart young woman. To her clients, she was the golden key to their dark ambitions. But Linda didn't know. The same shadows that fed her were also watching her. One evening, Mr. Williams invited her to a private house on the outskirts of the city. A place he called the Chamber. When Linda arrived, she was greeted by 3 other men in expensive suits. Their smiles were warm, but their eyes cold, calculating. She was led into a large, dimly lit room with red candles flickering on the floor. In the center was a table. On it sat a black clay pot. And beside it, several small envelopes, just like the ones she delivered. Linda stood frozen. Her instincts told her to run. But curiosity chained her feet to the ground. One of the men, an older gentleman with silver hair, opened an envelope and carefully poured the contents into the pot. He began chanting in a language Linda didn't understand. The flames of the candles flickered wildly. And a strange heat filled the air. Her skin prickled. Her chest tightened. For the first time, she felt she was not just a supplier. She was a witness to something her soul might never escape. And in that moment, she realized she had become part of the ritual itself. When the chanting ended, Mr. Williams approached her with a black velvet box. "Linda," he said softly, "you've done well. Tonight, we honor you." Inside the box lay a golden necklace with a red gemstone in the center. It glowed faintly, as if it were alive. Linda hesitated. "What is this?" she asked. "A blessing," Mr. Williams replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Wear it, and your beauty, your charm, your luck will never fade." She placed the necklace around her neck. It felt cold at first, then warm. Almost too warm. That night, when she returned home, she stood before her mirror. Her reflection looked different. Her eyes seemed brighter. Her skin glowed. She smiled without meaning to. She didn't know that the necklace was not a gift. It was a chain. From that moment, her dreams grew strange. She would see faceless men screaming, rivers of red, shadows whispering her name. But when she woke, the money was always there. And the deals kept coming. Weeks turned into months. And Linda's black zip bag never stayed empty for long. Foreign businessmen, wealthy politicians, even popular celebrities checked into the hotel. Each time, she watched the cameras, waited for the right moment, and collected what she came for. Her clients grew in number. Some paid in cash. Others gave her jewelry, luxury handbags, or even land documents. It became a game to her. The thrill of sneaking in, the satisfaction of sealing the envelope, the weight of the money in her purse. But the requests began to change. They wanted specific names, certain people. Sometimes they gave her a photograph. Sometimes, just a room number. One night, she got a call from a client who said only 6 words. "Linda, this one is very important." She didn't ask why. She had stopped asking questions a long time ago. The important man was a visiting senator. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a commanding voice. Linda had seen him on TV before. And now, here he was, staying just down the hall from her desk. She waited until his security detail left for the night. By morning, she slipped into the room, her gloves ready. But when she opened the bin, she found not one, but 3 sealed condoms, knotted neatly. She stared at them for a moment. Something about it felt too easy, too prepared. She bagged them anyway. And that evening, she handed them to a man she'd never met before. Tall, with a deep scar across his jaw, he took the envelope without a word and drove off. Linda told herself it was just another job. But deep down, something in her spirit whispered, this one would come back to her. 3 days later, the news broke. The senator was dead. The TV anchor's voice was calm, but the story was chilling. He was found in his home, unresponsive, doctors unable to determine the cause of death. Linda's heart pounded. Her mind went back to that room, the bin, the 3 knotted condoms. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Good work. Payment delivered. When she opened her door, there was a briefcase sitting on the floor. Inside was more cash than she had ever seen in her life. She tried to smile, but it wouldn't come. For the first time, the thrill was gone. And in its place, a shadow of fear began to grow. Linda began to notice him. A man in a dark suit, always sitting in the hotel lobby, pretending to read a newspaper. She saw him 3 nights in a row. The 4th night, he was outside her apartment building. When she finally confronted him, his lips curved into a slow smile. Linda, he said, you work for powerful people. Keep it that way, and you will live a long, rich life. Step out of line, and your beauty will be the last thing they take from you. Her knees went weak. By the time she blinked, he was gone. From that day, she began looking over her shoulder. Every shadow felt alive. Every whisper sounded like her name. Fear should have been enough to make her stop. But it didn't. The money, the lifestyle, the power, it was addictive. Like a flame she couldn't resist touching. She started taking bigger risks. Breaking into rooms before checkout. Following certain guests to private events, even sleeping with a few, just to secure fresh items for her buyers. Her reputation in the secret network grew. They called her the Golden Hand. The one who could get anything, anyone. But with each deal, her dreams became darker. She began waking with bruises she couldn't explain. And sometimes, she swore she could hear the necklace around her neck whispering in a voice only she could hear. It was a Thursday evening, the city outside her apartment window glowed with the restless hum of Abuja's nightlife. Linda had just poured herself a glass of red wine when her phone rang. The name on the screen froze her blood, Mr. Williams. His voice came through, smooth yet heavy with something unspoken. Linda, I have one last job for you. She tried to sound casual. I thought we agreed I'd take a break. He chuckled at a sound that felt like ice on her skin. This isn't optional. The payment will set you free. Forever. The target. A foreign ambassador. Wealthy. Protected. Untouchable. He never stayed in hotels, never moved without bodyguards, and his schedule was tighter than a locked vault. Linda knew what this meant. This was no simple collection. She would have to get close, very close. The kind of close that left no room for mistakes. But the promise of freedom forever dug into her mind like a hook. She imagined never having to answer calls at midnight, never sneaking through hotel corridors, never touching those black zip bags again. Her heart raced, not entirely from fear, but from the intoxicating possibility that this could be her way out. The plan took weeks to unfold. Linda knew this man would not be fooled by cheap tricks or casual smiles. She studied his patterns, his favorite restaurants, his usual routes, the charity galas he attended. Every detail was a thread, and she intended to weave herself into his life. Their first meeting was accidental. She bumped into him outside a luxury boutique, pretending to fumble with her handbag. Her charm was subtle that day, just enough to spark curiosity without raising suspicion. A week later, she appeared at a private wine tasting event he attended. This time, she let him approach her. Their conversation flowed like a slow river, calm, measured, with hidden depths. She laughed softly at his jokes, her eyes holding his just a second too long. Over the next month, they met again and again. Each time, the walls between them crumbled a little more. Finally, one humid Friday night, he invited her to his villa. The place was silent, guarded only by a single watchman at the gate. They shared a bottle of vintage champagne, the gold bubbles catching the soft glow of candlelight. When the moment came, she excused herself to the bathroom. Her hands trembled, not from guilt, but from the weight of the act. Inside the bin lay exactly what she had come for. She sealed it in tissue, slipped it into her purse, and returned to the table with a smile no one could read. The morning after her visit to the villa, Linda walked into the familiar luxury of the private suite where Mr. Williams always held their meetings. She carried the small, discreet envelope in her handbag, the contents sealed like a secret too dangerous to touch with bare hands. Mr. Williams was already waiting, seated in a high-back leather chair, his suit a perfect shade of midnight blue. Two men stood behind him, both tall, both silent. One had a deep scar running from his ear to his jawline, the same man she'd seen months ago. The other had cold, pale eyes that seemed to pierce straight through her. She placed the envelope on the table between them. For a moment, the room was still. Then Mr. Williams picked it up with deliberate care, sliding it into a black briefcase without opening it. "You've done well, Linda," he said slowly. But the warmth she'd once heard in his voice was gone. Instead, there was something finer in his tone, like a sentence being passed. "You've been valuable to us, but your work is finished." Her brow furrowed. "Finished? I thought." "You thought wrong," he interrupted. The scarred man stepped forward, taking her phone and her keys without a word. The pale-eyed man gripped her arm firmly, guiding her toward the door. Fear slithered up her spine. Something in her gut told her she wasn't going home. They drove her in silence. The car's tinted windows turned the streets of Abuja into shifting shadows, and Linda couldn't tell where they were taking her. Every turn felt like a deeper step into a place she could never return from. Finally, the car stopped in front of a nondescript building on the city's outskirts. It was tall, grey, and windowless, more like a fortress than a house. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of incense, and something metallic, like rust. They led her down a narrow hallway lit only by flickering candles. Her heels clicked against the cold stone floor, each step echoing like a drumbeat of doom. When they entered the main chamber, Linda froze. The room was circular, walls lined with strange symbols painted in deep crimson. In the center was a wide clay bowl filled with a dark red liquid. Around it stood the men she had been working for all these years, faces she recognized from whispered meetings and late-night pickups. Mr. Williams stepped forward, his smile sharp and unnatural under the candlelight. "Linda, did you think we would keep paying you forever?" he asked softly. Her lips parted, but no words came. He moved closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Beauty fades, but your essence will make us immortal." In that moment, every memory, every deal, every secret, every envelope fell into place. She had never been just a supplier. She had been their prize, fattened for the harvest. The moment the words left Mr. Williams' mouth, two men closed in on her. Their hands clamped around her arms like iron shackles, forcing her toward the center of the room. Linda's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. "No! Get off me!" she screamed, twisting violently. Her heels scraped against the stone floor, but the men didn't loosen their grip. Another figure stepped forward, a man she didn't recognize, holding a long, curved blade. The metal glinted in the candlelight, catching her reflection for a brief, terrifying instant. She saw her own wide, desperate eyes staring back at her. The chanting began. Low at first, a deep, rumbling vibration that seemed to seep into her bones. The men formed a circle around her, moving in slow rhythm, their shadows dancing on the walls. The scarred man forced her to kneel beside the clay bowl. The smell rising from it was sharp and coppery. It made her stomach twist. Mr. Williams stood over her, his expression calm, as if he had done this 100 times before. "Do not fight, Linda," he murmured. "Your beauty will not be wasted, your life will be eternal, through us." But Linda had no intention of becoming anyone's sacrifice. Her voice cut through the chanting like a crack of thunder. "Wait. I can get you more than you've ever had before." The chanting stopped. All eyes turned to her. Even the man with the blade hesitated, lowering the weapon slightly. Mr. Williams stepped closer, his brows narrowing. "More," he repeated. Her mind raced, names, faces, powerful men she had met in the hotel, at parties, in whispered deals. "I can get you politicians, businessmen, foreign royals," she said breathlessly. "People whose essence would make your power unstoppable." For a long, unbearable moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint crackle of the candles. Finally, Mr. Williams smiled, slowly, deliberately. "Very well," he said, his voice a dangerous purr. "You have 1 month. Fail, and we finish this." The hands on her arms loosened. She staggered to her feet, her knees weak but her mind already spinning with the desperate beginnings of a plan. She had bought herself time. But in her gut, she knew she had just signed a contract with the devil himself. They returned her phone and keys, but Linda knew better than to think she was free. She could feel it, the invisible leash tied to her neck. One wrong move, and they would drag her back. That night, she didn't go home. She didn't go to the hotel. She disappeared into the city's underbelly, changing cabs 3 times before checking into a rundown guest house where no one knew her name. She stripped off her dress and stared at herself in the cracked bathroom mirror. The golden necklace with the red gemstone still hung around her neck. She tried to pull it off. It wouldn't budge. Her fingers clawed at the chain until her skin burned, but it stayed in place, almost as if it had fused with her flesh. Then, she heard it. A whisper. Soft, almost like the sigh of a sleeping child. But it was speaking her name. Linda's blood ran cold. She wrapped herself in a towel, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the wall until the sun rose. She wasn't just running from them now. She was running from something that had already claimed a part of her. Weeks passed. Linda avoided all her old contacts. She paid in cash, moved every few days, and never stayed in one place long enough for anyone to notice her. But something was wrong. Her beauty, it didn't fade. Not even a little. Her skin stayed flawless. Her eyes shone brighter than ever. Men still turned to look at her wherever she went. And that's when she began to notice the deaths. The first was a man she met at a small cafe. They had coffee, talked for hours. 2 days later, she saw his face on the news, dead in his sleep. Then another. And another. Every man who touched her, every man who kissed her, was gone within days. The realization hit her like ice water. The necklace wasn't just keeping her beautiful. It was feeding, taking from anyone who came too close. And Linda knew, sooner or later, it would take everything from her too. They say in Abuja, there's a woman who walks the night. A woman with smooth, fair skin, and braids that shimmer with gold beads. Her smile could melt stone. Her voice could calm storms. If you meet her, she might buy you a drink. She might laugh at your jokes. She might even take your hand in hers. But if she does, your days are numbered. Linda is still out there, collecting. Not for Mr. Williams anymore, but for the shadows that whisper her name in the dark. For the necklace that clings to her like a second skin. For the hunger that can never be satisfied. And so, my friend, if you ever see her, run. Because beauty like hers is not a blessing. It's the last thing you ever see. If this chilling African folktale kept you hooked to the end, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next haunting tale. Some stories are closer to the truth than you think.